so much for joining us this morning, where we will be learning how to pitch smarter and not harder, how to use AI to win corporate contracts. But before we jump into all of that, I always like to take a moment to introduce the Webeck ORV team. That way, if you happen to see us out and about in the community, you can put a name with a face. Our president and CEO, Dr. Frederica Singletary. Our fractional CHRO is LaCosta Moore. Our Senior Director of Marketing, Communications, and Engagement is Courtney Martin. I am Dr. Kitiana Lowe. I am the Director of Programs and Events here at Webeck ORV. And then all of you as WBEs will be very familiar with our certification team led by our Director of Certification and Outreach, Colleen Rudisell, our Certification Manager, Robbie Moore, and down here at the end, we have a Certification Specialist, Anita Steele. And then on our corporate side, if we happen to have any corporates on the call, you may be familiar with our Corporate Engagement Manager, Devin Davis. And then our administrative assistant who keeps us all together and moving in the right direction is Morgan McDonald. We are a mighty team who work diligently to do all things that you all need in terms of programs, events, certification to help your business grow. I would also like to take a moment to thank our 2026 Champion Circle. These are corporates and WBEs who have lockstep with our organization and me to be able to put together programming such as this free of charge. So I want to thank them for all that they do and all of their support with our organization. And so for today, yes, Boz Group is in the house. Yes, you are. Today, our speaker is Daryl Johnson. He is founder and CEO of Ideation to Valuation. And what we're going to do today is we're going to have, I don't want to call it a fireside chat. I want to say we're going to have a chit chat between the two of us and you all just kind of listening in the room because Daryl is going to share with us a new product that he has, an AI tool that he has created that I think and that we think is going to do an amazing job to help you out in your businesses. And even more importantly, because we know it's right around the way, right around the corner, here we go, catch the wave, right? So we want to provide tools to help you all as we're getting together and preparing for Catch the Wave. So Daryl, I would like to say welcome. And if you would like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Greetings, all. Again, my name is Daryl Johnson. I'm 20 years in the supplier development, corporate contracting space. I've been involved in the NMSDC and WeBank programmatic programs across the country for 20 years. Worked at the NMSDC twice, ran many accelerators, have sold millions of dollars to corporations, have lots of friends that are buyers, and I compiled all that into a tool that I think is desperately needed, according to my buyer friends, to help my suppliers have better connections and drive more revenue for their companies.
Thank you so much, Daryl. Welcome. So we've talked about Opportunity Matchmaker. You and I were having some conversations one-on-one. For those who are not aware, Opportunity Matchmaker is a really great opportunity or a chance to be able to meet with our corporates during Catch the Wave. Tell me about, I'm going to go to this next slide. Tell me about this Name Your Buyer slide. Tell me about people and looking for their buyers.
Well, if it's okay with you, Dr. K, I would like to drop in the chat um, a little prompt that I would like for folks to do. Um, in order to determine who your buyer is, there in a corporate, there's lots of different buyers in a corporate sale. So while you might be meeting with the buyer, the corporates buy in the form of a group. So when you want to name your buyer, it becomes pretty challenging. So I want to talk and distill that today. And at the end, I would like to do a demo so I can help people actually name some of their buyers, depending on what company they choose. So I dropped in the chat if you'll tell me what you sell and what company, has to be a publicly traded company that you're looking to target. We'll pull some folks from the audience if they're willing, and I will run one live to not only tell you who your buyer is, but what you should say and what your value proposition is to them right now.
Perfect. That's going to be great. So this will be a great way for everyone to kind of introduce themselves without coming off mute. So definitely, if you get a moment, if you're not driving and it's safe for you to do so, please drop that into the chat. Let's go ahead and move on to your next slide, Daryl.
Um, so one of the things that I notice about when I coach business, I run accelerators and have done a lot of business coaching, is that suppliers kind of separate themselves. Now, I'm going to put my buyer hat on. I'm not been a buyer, but I have lots of experience working with buyers. I have lots of friends with a buyer. My business partner's a buyer. I I noticed that suppliers fall into two camps. They either guess what they think the corporate wants, and then they start down that road. And then there's other organizations that lead with intelligence. And so, one of the things that we have to remember today, because of technology, many times 60 to 70% of the sale is done before they talk to you. And we do the same thing when we're going to buy something. We do our research, we start looking things up, and then we kind of create a short list, or we at least understand what we want to talk about with whoever is selling us something. And so I'm saying today, you do not want to guess what corporations want to buy. You want to lead with data. You want to walk in already relevant. And that's what we're going to show you how to do today.
Perfect. So walk us through how corporations actually buy. We know that many people picture one person making the decision, but we know that's really not how it works, right? Like it's not just one person that just gets all of that. It's a process and it's a multiple people. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So, this is my opinion, but it also is backed up by data. Um, Corporations obviously are ran by leaders. Those leaders set the business objectives for the corporation. The corporation then, after those business objectives are set up, push those business objectives down to business units. Business units break up that direction into the little pieces that they work on. And sometimes they buy direct, but many times they go through procurement. And procurement then, based off what the business unit says they want to buy, starts doing the sourcing process and ultimately gets to us. In many cases, large corporations run a RFI, RFQ, RFP process. And depending on what stage you jump in that process, will determine what type of chance you have to win that business. My hope is that folks understand the process enough to know that an RFI, the request for information, is kind of that starting point. So they do that potentially 18 months before they actually end up buying something. If you get an RFP, they've potentially already gone through this RFI process. And so let's say that I was lucky enough to find an opportunity where I was included in the RFI. The RFI says, here's what's their challenge. And they ask for suppliers they deem capable to tell us how you would solve for it. Down the road, then, after we've all shared our information, probably had several meetings with them, they believe they understand their problem enough. They believe they understand the market enough. They believe they understand the supplier availability enough to put something out where they actually want to now get proposals that they will choose somebody to actually do this work. If you get in on the RFP, potentially I've already helped them decide that one or two of the things that they really must have are things that I only do. So when I was selling technology, I could read an RFP and already tell what company's already been influencing them. Once that RFP is done, then it goes back to the business units and a committee of 6 to 10 people decide which way they want to go. Many times they're looking at respondents that they already know. Rarely, I think, in the corporate space because risk is so they don't want any risk. They buy from somebody they've never bought from. The other thing about how you present your information to the corporation is corporations are twice as likely to take action, i.e., put budget towards things that are a pain than towards things that are a gain. So if you do something that makes their world awesome and wonderful, I would caution you to find where is the pain that your solution solves or your product or service solves and speak more towards the pain because right now they know how much the problem is costing them by not having it solved. And ultimately, when you speak to pain, you have, twice as much attention because twice as much budget is going towards solving pain than gains. And one of the things that I also like to share because sometimes my suppliers, once they get certified, they kind of understand the game. They're like, hey, I want to go right to Eli Lilly. I want to go direct and just go talk to Eli Lilly. Well, in the process, there is a tiering process. There's the customer, Eli Lilly, who wants to buy, let's say, some contracting services for cleaning, and it's a national contract. You might be able to support Eli Lilly's here in Indianapolis. You might be able to support their Indianapolis campus, but they're building one in Alabama. They just built one in North Carolina. They're building a plant in Santa Barbara, California. They want to do a contract with one vendor for all of that? Can you do that? Probably not. So that's why they work with the larger companies like a CBRE, and then CBRE, a tier one now to um, Eli Lilly, is looking for suppliers to help them in those areas, which could be your company for, let's say, Indianapolis. You are a tier two supplier. Let's say that job is so big that you need to hire some of your friends that have cleaning companies to help you get the capacity you need to supply CBRE with all the cleaning contracting needs they have. Those people that you hire would be tier three. So you have to understand this tiering process because it's kind of like if you go to the movies and you just go cut in line, people are going to have a problem with you if you don't understand this process. And you will kind of stick out if you don't. Lastly, when you have the conversation, because Lily will still talk to you, when you have the conversation with Lily, the strategy that I found to be effective is when you go talk to Lily, know who Lily's customer, who's the customer's customer. So who is Lily's customer? So Lily's customer, let's say, is somebody who's on the some of these new drugs, and that new drug is a drug that helps me lose weight. So I on purpose understand what are these customers that want to lose weight? What are they demanding of the drug? I don't want to be tired. I want to have lots of energy. I still want to be able to eat what I want to eat, but I still want to lose weight. Lilly says, got it. They start building a drug that does that. When I sit down and talk to Lily, I'm going to start talking about what the market is saying their drugs have to do, which then influences you, Lily, to do the things you need to do, which requires you to have good, clean manufacturing facilities so you don't have downtime. And that's what we do. So in the pursuit of making sure your people have the drugs they want, I'm going to make sure your places are clean. You kind of help them understand that you understand the cycle of life as it relates to their customers, and you become less of a vendor and more of a strategic partner.
I love that. I love that idea of not just being a vendor, but actually being a partner and knowing what the risk and pain points are for the company that you want to do business with, right? So it's not just I sell baskets and let me run to every corporation with my basket mate with all of my baskets, but making sure does the company actually need these baskets? And how does my basket solve their problem that they have so that they want to choose my basket as opposed to opposed to anything else. And so you and I have had some conversations, and you've talked to me about these risks that we need to be really clear about. Share with the team who's here about merit.
Yeah, so having a buyer as a business partner has really opened my eyes to the many things that you might not know is going on behind the scenes when you're just having what feels to be a natural conversation with a buyer. They are actually pre-programmed to capture different dimensions of risk that help them understand how to plot you as a supplier on this continuum of where they see, suppliers that do work for them, where they see suppliers that don't work for them. They're kind of asking questions so they can plot you on this kind of continuum. The thing that I found out of all of the different things, and in some cases, depending on the company, it's been as many as 35 different dimensions that you're being rated on in this kind of simple flowing interaction you're having with a buyer. Not necessarily over one meeting, but kind of multiple meetings. They're plotting you on this. And the thing that I found is the most um, talked about are these five. And what I put together was basically an acronym to make sure that you, supplier, make sure that their perceived risk about doing business with you has no merit. And the way that we do that is you build your conversation such that if these five tiles were pins that we were bowling, in your conversation, you're naturally knocking down these pins without them knowing or you just spelling out that you're doing that. An example might sound a little something like this. So with the M being for money, can I afford it? And what if it fails? Is kind of the question you need to answer in your conversation. One of the things I like to do is I like to make sure that you explain that there's a range, and that you're flexible and that you meet your customers where their needs are. The second is the E, the energy is how much work is it going to be for my team or me to not only implement your solution, but do you have friends or suppliers or partners that as soon as they call you or you see them, you're like, ugh, I don't have the energy for this person today. Like, are you a lot of energy? Are you the type of supplier that instead of asking me the five questions you need to know up front, you ask me one, then you send me another email and ask me another, then you send me another email and ask, like, nobody has the energy to continue to work with a supplier on the front side that is making me question how much energy I have to work with you. What is it going to be like if I actually buy from you? In many cases, the R is the number one that they cannot afford to have issues with. Their reputation is everything. They can't work with suppliers, and many of you can Google today and find suppliers that have put corporations in the news. I think one of the bigger ones was that breach that Target had. That was a HVAC supplier who was connecting to some HVA system. His laptop had a virus on it and pushed it through the Target system, and that's when we had all that, hype about what's going on with Target and their cybersecurity. That put their reputation at risk, and that was due to a supplier. The identity is really around culture, and does your culture match our culture? How are you sharing the non software or solution or product or service side of what you do? How do you train your people? What's the culture like at your place? Because they are trying to listen for, is there a match there? And then lastly, time. Not only how fast does it take for us to see value for what you do, but how long does it take for me and you to actually go from start to deployment? I've seen suppliers that have really dialed in their time to value for their corporations, and they measure it internally. So your conversation should be built around knocking each one of these things down. There's plenty more, but I think these right here have been the common ones that I see you get the most benefit out of when you're talking to folks. That's if you're in a buyer meeting, if you're in a pitch, if you have a 2-minute elevator speech, somehow incorporate these.
This is very good and definitely tools that we need to think of. I've got just a couple more questions for you before we get a chance for you to actually show us this demo.
Sure.
So, we talked about doing your homework, right? And we talked about making sure you've got merit and that you know what the organization needs, but how would you actually how would you actually recommend, excuse me, our listeners today, like where do they actually start with their research?
Amazingly enough, you have um, um, lots of different sources where you can actually find data. Interestingly enough, I was lucky enough to receive a email from one of your rock stars on your team, and I know everybody's a rock star on your team, but I got to give a shout out to Devin. She was over at the Connecting Ohio event and ran into some folks at P&G, and it came up that she was talking with a buyer, and lucky enough, she mentioned our solution, and she's like, "Wow, that might be something really good for us because I can't tell you how many times we sit down with somebody and they go, and now tell me what Procter and Gamble does. If you want to blow yourself up in a meeting, go into a meeting and don't know what the actual company does." especially when I'm about to tell you what I'm about to tell you about how much information is already out here and free. So, to your question, you can grab any one of these six dimensions for free. They're all free. Some of them have have to sign up and get the information. But I would start with the 10K. The 10K is effectively the annual report. However, there is a section in there where it talks about risk factors. And this is where the corporation discloses basically all the things that keep them up at night. And so if you don't mind reading a 150 to 200 page document, I'm a nerd and a geek and been teaching this for years, so I will read them. That's why we built the AI, so we don't have to do that, but more on that later. But these 10Ks, they share so much information and good, valuable information about what you could potentially hang your hat on as far as what you want to talk about with that corporation. The same is true for the 10Q. It's more of a quarterly update. So that's something that I leverage if I want to be not, potentially 9 months old, but only 3 months old with my information. The earnings call transcripts, again, total nerd here. I love listening to these calls. So whenever I see an alert that says Salesforce or Cummins or Procter & Gamble or whoever is getting ready to have their earnings call, I will go listen to it. That's when the CEO, CFO get on a call and explain to the investor community, the analysts, what's going on with the organization, and they have to answer a lot of hard questions. Sometimes in the 10K and the 10Q, the language is written in such a way that it doesn't, it's designed to be semi-guarded and coded so that if you don't know how to actually internalize what they're saying and to know which one's hot and which one's not, it kind of reads where it kind of masks that. There's other things, proxy statements that are really good for some other kind of deeper inside information. There's plenty of information on the investor relations pages, and then the federal government requires corporations to file these things in the Securities and Exchange Commission database. This is a free database, sec.gov. You can go to that, you can put in any company, and you can pull up a lot of this data. Again, it's a ton of data, spreadsheets and stuff. There are other tools like Seeking Alpha or Motley Fool that do a good job of kind of still a lot of data, but they make it a little easier, put it all on one page so you can see it. I leverage those a lot. But there's no excuse basically from the buyer side for you not to know what we are doing in here. You have more information than the company that's just down the street from you because a private company doesn't have to share any of this. A public company is sharing so much information that it becomes hard to understand. Private companies don't share anything. And so I recommend that you start looking at these, especially if you're coming to the event, which I absolutely recommend you go to Catch the Wave. I've probably been to at least 15. They're always great, but they're always filled with corporations that, you didn't know that you were going to be sitting next to Cargill, right? And so if you can start doing your homework on what kind of questions you should ask and what kind of research you should be doing on companies, you can be better prepared for those one-off meetings.
So thank you so much for sharing with us all of these tools, all of these free tools, first of all, that are readily at our fingertips to be able to gather this information. You talked about some of these things, maybe 150 to 200 pages. Not everybody loves listening and reading all of those things like you
I
do.
know,
So give us
I
some
know.
tips about how to navigate some of that information that we're looking at.
So, um, we all probably, I'd be surprised if everybody who's listening or will listen doesn't have their favorite AI tool. So for years, I've been telling people, take your favorite AI tool that knows you, go to either the SEC government site or one of the other ones I mentioned, Seeking Alpha or Motley Fool, and go ahead and download that 100-page annual report, 10K. Go ahead and download that earnings call transcript. Throw it into your favorite tool and ask it, is there anything that we can, support that's got pain for them right now? Some of the words that you want to listen for, I've kind of listed here. When they talk about headwinds, it might just read real simple to you right there. But these are ongoing problems that they cannot fully control. These are the things that drive companies insane. is that this is a risk that they can't control. And when you listen to the earnings call transcripts, when you hear these analysts really bulldogging on this CEO about what are you going to do with these headwinds? Because the more you don't address them, the more likely somebody is to pull their money from Procter and Gamble and put it in somebody else's company that can address these headwinds. The same is true for cost optimization. When you see cost optimization, something's happening financially that is driving them to cut costs. And it's not like, oh, we can take our time and do it. No, it's urgent. If you see cost optimization and you do something that helps reduce cost, get in there. They are looking for solutions all over the organization to support cost cutting. If they call it a challenging environment, then that means a competitor is eating their lunch. That means somewhere their competitive advantage is not strong. And if that's something you do, get in there. If they say they're exploring strategic opportunities, that means potentially not only is something going wrong, but potentially some business unit or some company they own could be up for sale. And the last, if they're investing in transformation, that means things are going so good that we got budget over here and we're spending money over here. We're effectively taking market share. We are investing in the gains that we're trying to get. And if that's something that you do, is you help them realize net new markets better, you can provide information that clarifies how to make better decisions. Get in there. They're looking for you.
That's very helpful. So I've done my research, I've gathered all my information, I understand what I'm actually reading, so I know what I'm talking about. So tell me what's next? How do I actually take all of that information together and make it make sense for what I'm trying to do?
Well, so the first thing is trying to understand, is this going to be a priority customer? I need to understand, am I going after, again, I've been using Eli Lilly. If I'm going after Eli Lilly because they're big, they're local, and I just want to find a way to work with them, that's one thing. A different thing is I've done the reading, I've done the homework, and I understand that they have pains that I actually solve. The one thing I notice about suppliers is, and it's nobody's fault, when you're growing your business, the smaller businesses that are not corps want to know what you do. So you tell them what you do. You put it all over your website, you tell them what you do. Corporations want to know, what problem do you solve? Unfortunately, the buyers don't tell you that they want you to tell them, what problem do you solve? So they'll say to you, oh, nice to meet you, Joe. What do you do? Don't answer that with what you do. Just train your brain to tell them, what problem do you solve? I feel like the gene that used to help buyers take what you do and then kind of look at their list of problems they're trying to solve and then figure out that you probably, basically based off what you do, could probably, they don't do that. They're listening for the people that already understand the language of how to communicate with the buyer, which is, tell me what problem you solve. And so when you finally understand how to do that messaging transition, and we'll do a little of that today too, when you finally understand how to do that messaging transition, one of the things that I think is important is to um, make sure that your AI understands how to communicate that way. If you have PowerPoints, one pagers, your website, all of that, run it through that. A prompt that's super helpful is, if you put into your AI, um, whatever it is that you're asking for, say, add this to it. Say, and give this back to me in the buyer side value perspective. I'll say that again. Give it back to me in the buyer side value perspective. All of the suppliers on this call right now, and it's not anyone's, again, it's psychology. You are a supplier. So you're coming at it from the supplier side value perspective. So what you call value isn't always what the buyer calls value. And honestly, the buyer is the one who defines the value. So when you say to your AI, give it back to me in the buyer side value perspective, it kind of does that shift that you see over there on the right. So instead of you saying we provide supply chain consulting for manufacturers, you say your annual report named on-time delivery as a top risk. That's exactly what we fix. You're communicating in the language of the buyer. When you sit down with the buyer, the likelihood of you knowing that you know what their problem is, which usually for a supplier turns on our selling brain, and so we start selling in the first meeting. There may not even be anything to sell to, and the buyer may not even have anything that they want to buy. They might just be investigating whether or not you're a supplier that we want to start the understanding process with. I remember I was the president for the Mid-States Minority Supplier Development Council a while back, and we did a survey of our corporates and we did a survey of our suppliers. And we asked one simple question. For the corps, it was when a supplier started knocking on your door, the first time they started knocking on your door, to the time you actually they got a contract and they started doing business with you, how long did that take? And then we asked the suppliers, from the time you started knocking on that corporation's door to the time you actually got a contract, how long did that take? And interestingly enough, the answer came back pretty much the same. You want to take a guess at how long it was?
Come on.
Maybe put in the chat.
Yes. Drop
Let's
it in the
put
chat. Yes.
Put in the
Don't put me
chat.
on
How
front
long do
screen.
you
Drop it
think
in the
the
chat. How long do
average?
you think
Now,
it took?
of course, there were people under the average, and of course, there were people over the average. But I was really surprised that they kind of aligned.
We got 10 months.
Okay. Well, who else? I'd love to see a few more. 18 months.
18
Okay.
months. I was
Okay.
gonna say about a year,
Okay. 2 to 3 years. Okay.
years.
I can almost tell, by these answers, I can almost tell who has been doing business with large corporations or pursuing them and who isn't. Um, okay, maybe I'll wait for one more to come in. The answer was 3 years. There was
Wow.
people
Wow.
certainly shorter, and I've experienced shorter, but the timing was amazing. And I also had an internal champion, and I had a sponsor in the business unit, and I had a whole lot of stars aligned, and it shrunk that time. But I also was chasing some companies, Cummins Engine, I chased them for 5 years. Um, so with the average being 3, clearly in this first meeting, there's probably no reason to start selling. That's why I say be a physician, not a professor. Don't go in there talking about what you want to do or at least starting to try to sell against what you're trying to do. Listen for what they're saying is pain and continue to ask questions about that. Probe, kind of try to pull out of them more what that pain is costing them. What happens if you don't make a change? What is it costing you today to stay the same? Um, have you already talked to other suppliers that supposedly can do this? Have you guys made internal, uh, uh, have you had any internal discussions around how you want to solve this pain and what has come of it? Do you have budget to solve this pain? In the event that a supplier is kind of emerging as somebody who looks like they might solve this pain, how do you bring on suppliers? Do you do RFPs? Do you just get 3 quotes? Like, start asking those questions to try to figure out what the actual problem is and work with the buyer to really dust it off and clarify what it is to the degree that they don't even feel like you're selling. You're really like on their side trying to understand the problem. And for sure, don't go in there without doing your homework on who the company is and what they do. I can't tell you how many times I've listened to buyers tell me that, the supplier seems like a good fit. They actually have some of the solutions that are interesting to us right now. Wow, okay, so you're gonna pick them? Nah, why not? They don't have the acumen that we're looking for. What does that mean? They don't do research. They're not going to be the type of supplier that's always keeping up with us and making suggestions and how we can do things better because they have internal processes that keep their understanding about our organization um, top of mind. I would have to train them on all that, and we don't have time to do that. And again,
Yeah.
for them, they have 10 more people in the lobby that do that.
Right, right. So this is so good, and I think you've definitely ensured that our audience is aware of all of the different ways that they can do their research. But the one thing that you talked about, and I want to make sure that we have enough time for you to share. So I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen. I want to go ahead and pivot. You talked about how to use AI and how AI can really help you. You gave an AI prompt, after you type all of your information in to say, give this information back to me in the value side of the buyer's perspective. But you've got a little secret that I want to make sure that you got time to share with us today about an
Sure.
AI tool that can be used. So tell us more about that tool.
Yeah, so for a long time again, I was telling people, hey, take the 10Ks, download the 10Qs, the earnings call transcripts. Corporations buy and sell companies all the time. They get fined, they get sued, they file patents, they have operations overseas. Um, they uh they have cyber breaches. They have a lot of different things that you can find, but many times my suppliers are competing with bigger companies that have a sales analyst. The sales analyst job is to do all that stuff I was telling you about. They go and take those 10Ks and 10Qs. This is their only job, to take their 10Ks and 10Qs and whoever the sales team is going after. They go away for weeks and do all this research. They know the company, so they create these briefings that tell them, "Hey, I know you said you wanted to go after, Eli Lilly, but based off what I'm seeing, we don't need to spend any time there." If it takes 18 to 36 months to win business there and to figure out if there's an opportunity, I would rather know now not to do that as opposed to figure out 18 months from now that there's nothing. And so I challenge people to leverage AI to put all this stuff in there and see what it can give you. Well, many times they didn't do it. They still just went on ahead and went to the meetings, didn't do the research. So I said, gotta be a better way. We got AI. And so I partnered with some folks and we built a tool that takes all that time that a sales analyst would do. And in the Midwest, the sales analyst is anywhere from 85 to 125,000 a year, and they're not selling anything, let alone what you got to spend for the salesperson to actually go after the work or the owner, right? And so I said there's got to be a better way. We figured out a solution that allows us to take that week or two of research and knowledge and synthesizing it into your approach to a company. And it does it in, I won't say it's as fast as ChatGPT, the way you're using it now, because we connect to a lot of databases and do a lot of research internally, but it might take 10, 12 minutes. I'm happy to share what the tool does. And then I'm happy to take, if anybody answered in the chat, the prompt. And if you want, I can put it in there
They
again to
did,
keep it
yes.
top of
So while
mind.
you're pulling that up, and yes, we did have some people who did answer in the chat. If you scroll up in the beginning, you'll see some of those answers there. So this tool is called the BFD. So
Can you
while
see
you're
it?
pulling it up, telling it's
Yeah.
coming, it's coming. Tell
Okay.
us, what is the BFD, which is funny because that's right on your screen. What does that
Yeah.
stand for? And let's jump in. Give us like 10 minutes here.
Sure. So the BFD internally for us is called Big Freaking Deals. So if you want to do big freaking deals, you have to have the Big Freaking Deal app. That's our little internal joke. The actual term is for business financial data. And so what we have is we have a tool that you will get access to. This is not totally launched yet. So ORV is actually getting the exclusive. And we'll talk more about when it's available to you all later. But you will be able to do what's called a dig, which is the tool that actually runs the research for you. So you'll build a company profile, it'll check your profile. You can save the different companies that you search for. You can upload documents so it knows even more about you. But when you run when you build your profile, it's going to ask you questions, but you can load a bunch of other information so it really, really knows you. And then the dig just starts doing these corporate x-ray scans on what's going on with the company. And it quickly gives you, it does it, it takes a little more time than we probably want to share on here, but it tells you whether or not you should go after it. It kind of gives you a rating to let you know whether or not you should pursue it. My recommendation is there's so many publicly traded companies out here. You might as well start working with the ones that have the conditions and the pains and the problems that you solve, as opposed to, well, they're just right over there. I want to find a way to work with them. That may not be the best approach. And then what I also teach is that just because you have information, information doesn't equal transformation. And what we're looking for is for you to become a better presenting supplier, particularly on your first meetings. That first meeting is real pivotal on how much further you end up going in an organization. And I think this is the best way to change the conversation. You don't go in saying, "Hi, my name is Daryl. We do all this stuff." You go in very specific and surgical. But again, with information, you need the coaching to create the transformation. So the sales advisor actually takes, whoops, the sales advisor act, well, when it's turned on, the sales advisor actually takes a lot of knowledge and experience that I've taught you in even a little bit in this presentation here, but other knowledge that has been wrapped into the sales advisor. So now it takes that information that you got from a company that, let's say, you want to start working with. It'll tell you what you need to put in your PowerPoint. It'll tell you here is market research that supports the direction that you want to go. Here is subject matter experts in this particular industry. So your end customer will recognize them as a subject matter expert in their industry who is also saying this is what you should do. It'll tell you based on the two or three biggest pain points that align with what you do. It'll give you two or three questions that map back to your strength, your value proposition. So when you're, sitting at a table or you're doing your matchmaker, you don't ask random questions. You ask very specific questions that set you up to talk about the strong positioning you have for that particular pain. It will tell you how to build a one pager that communicates this. Again, it'll give you a lot of information that you can use for proposals if you're going to respond to an RFP. It makes all of that so dialed in that you don't end up wasting time on parts of your business that have no value to the organization and work only on parts of the business that do have value to their organization. Now, what I did was I also took a snippet of the large custom instruction that's running behind here, and I made a Claude kind of a quick something that we can use for today's purposes so people can actually walk away with something that can do actionable with a company that they're thinking about working with. And also, I don't want to forget, Dr. K, the merit framework is so important to me that you get that down. That if it's okay with you after this, I'm going to send you a worksheet that
Sure.
is something that the people can take home and workshop on an individual company. So that I just really want all the suppliers to have like so much of a more wildly successful Catch the Wave conference than they've ever had because
Yeah.
their preparation has been specific and very on point.
That's so good. We appreciate that. We'll definitely include that with the copy of the PDF of the deck as well as the recording. Daryl, I want to make sure that everybody has time in case they have any questions or anything like that because we only have until the
Sure.
top of the hour. Let's go ahead and drop in. Kenton
One of the
had
companies?
put in
Ooh,
yes, put in there the answer to your
I
question.
see it.
You see that one?
Okay.
They are a telecom expense
Yep.
management company, and or that's what they sell, and they're looking to do business with Key Bank. Are you able to drop
Okay.
that in so that our
Yeah.
viewers can see how that works?
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, let's see what we come up with. So is it Kenton? Are we Dr. K, are we allowed to kind of pull Kenton in and see if he can come off mic if it's a he?
We sure can. Kenton, are
Sounds
you able to
good.
come off mute?
Yeah.
He's
Hey
here.
Kenton, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
So as you can see, it's going and searching what it can find. Now the only thing about what happens with uh, what's available publicly, like on chat GPTs and all this, is that some of it may be a little bit older. Mine is super to the date. If it happened yesterday, it's in the system. May not be that way but still probably gives good direction. So right now, Kenton, based off your telecom expense management for Key Corp, which I think is the bank, right? It's saying that the top three documented pains for them right now are expenses. Their expenses are climbing. It says they rely heavily on outside vendors, and I'll put this in the chat so you can have it. And it says they publicly promise to grow revenue twice as fast as expenses. All right, so these are their pains. It says, which one do you relieve? And this again is not based off very much data. Our tool would have a lot more data on you, but it's saying out of all these, the third one is the one that potentially you might be a fix for. It says they're running 940 branches and 1100 ATMs across blah, 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 blah. So it's saying for you, if you were to sit down, let's say you were going to meet with KeyBank tomorrow. It says Chris told the street, that must be their CEO, Key would grow revenue twice as fast as expensive this year, and with 940 branches, blah blah ATMs, 800,000 employees, your carrier bills are one of the few lines that can cut without touching headcount. Who owns that number today? That's far better than just saying whatever. I don't even know what you, Kenton, what would you, if you would have sat down with him today, what would you have said?
We usually approach it from the three services we can provide, but I like that action item of who owns that.
And then it's saying, according to them, these are some of the folks that you should be thinking about because you not only want to talk to the buyer who is responsible for the contracting part, but be honest, I always like to include in my sales approach because remember, these are the people that are probably going to be at the table when it comes to deciding who's going to be our vendor, not just the buyer. There's going to be the head of procurement. There's going to be somebody in infrastructure network services and probably a financial person. And Kenton, I'm not sure who you work for, but I'm sure if you've been successful in corporations, you know that you have to have some sit downs in multiple departments so people know your name, your process, because each department cares about something different about what you do.
Yep.
This is so
I'll put
good. And I see Michelle Uber put in the chat said this is a great webinar. I love the practicality of it and the fact that the BFD really spells out everything for you, especially once you've taken the time to put information about your company into the system.
Oh
And
yeah.
then it knows more about you and what you do. And then it's able to pull out those pain points. So thank you so much, Daryl, for sharing this. I've got two more things I want to talk about, and I want to make sure we have got time for some questions. So let
Okay.
me share my screen again really quickly.
Do I have to stop
As
sharing? You know how to grab it?
I'll just
Let me,
replace it. I'll take your
I
shares, fine.
I did it. There you go.
Um,
Okay.
so the information that Daryl shared today, he's actually provided you with two opportunities to be able to use that. The first one is you can take this prompt and paste this into your favorite AI tool, and you can begin using this as quickly as today or as quickly as we send this deck out to you, which probably won't be
Hmm.
today, but we'll get it out to you
Take
very
a
quickly.
picture of it. Maybe tell them to take a picture of
Yes,
it.
yes, you can take a picture of it. That is true. So I'll leave it up here and just for just 1 second. Good idea. So that's the first thing you can do. The second thing that you get to do is you actually get to use the BFD. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my next slide and I'll come back to the one with Daryl's information. But beginning on August the 1st, you are able to use the BFD for your company free of charge. All you have to do is you'll go to bfdit.com to create your account and things of that nature. You'll have complimentary access through November the 6th. So this allows you plenty of time to put everything in there that needs to happen, not only for Catch the Wave, but even after Catch the Wave. Complimentary. Thanks to Daryl and his generous partnership with Webeck ORV. If you're on in the very beginning, he's already told you guys that we're his favorite. So this is apparent,
Man, you
right?
guys are great.
If you have any questions, their email address, his team's email address is there. They can answer any questions that you have as you're navigating the BFD, but definitely take the opportunity to jump in and use this tool. Why not use this free tool? So those are two ways that you can share this information. One, jumping into the BFD yourself, and then two, in the meantime, using this prompt that you can put into your AI tool. You can do both of those. I want to take a moment and see, does anybody have any questions at all for Daryl? I know this has been a lot of really great information. I know he spent a lot of time
Yeah.
in the beginning, kind of really level setting all of the things that you need to be doing. And that's really why leveraging AI, leveraging this tool is so important, because you want to go into every meeting with as much information as possible. No more just walking up to people. I know none of our folks on this call have ever walked up to somebody and just said, what do you do? They at least do at least the research in the beginning to at least know what they do. So this really will help you to be able to do that research. Yes, Frederica, what's your question?
So, Daryl, I have the privilege of knowing about a little bit more about BFD. And I know one of the cool features that you shared with me is that it is mobile. You take it with you. So I know that people will prep for opportunity matchmakers and their scheduled meetings, but what happens when a supplier sits down with you at one of the meals and you're wondering, what problem could I solve for them? And I did not research them. What do you do in those moments and how do you use the BFD then?
So great question. And oh my gosh, that's like probably one of the main things that we were trying to solve for. Right now, the mobile app is being furiously developed, but it's not completely done yet. So at Catch the Wave, you would hopefully keep the internet version of it open. But ideally, particularly during a conference, there is going to be a conference version. The conference version is the lighter version that knows that you're in this kind of moment of talking where we're between the salads and the main course. And I just sat next to, Cargill, and I am what's his name that just went here? Kenton. I'm Kenton with Telecom Expense Management. I'm assuming they have telecom expenses, but I don't know what's going on with them. So I kind of lean over, put in Cargill into the conference portion of it, take a sip of water, make a joke, look back at my phone, and now I'm going to ask this Cargill person some very specific questions about their telecom expense management and the questions are going to map back to my value proposition and how I solve for that. And I think that's the thing that really changes the game, particularly when, I don't know about anybody else, but corporations don't answer the phone and they don't answer emails. So how do you sell to them? Well, when you catch them, you have to be on point. You have to be very specific. And unfortunately, at a conference, you don't really know who you're going to run into. So that's a great question. And, I don't know that we'll be done by the time Catch the Wave comes with the mobile app portion, but we will definitely have the conference version available so that you can pull it up on your phone and make every meeting a meaningful meeting. And the nice thing about the tool is, let's say, and this has happened to me multiple times at national conferences, where we get into a conversation and they say, "My gosh, this is great. My executive VP is here. He would love to probably hear this. Can you meet with us in a couple hours? He's only here for 8 hours. Can you meet with us in a couple hours? We'd love to just, if you have some slides you can show us." And we all go away panicking because we don't know what to say. How do I build a slide? Right now with AI, I'm going to give you a quick tip. If you use Chat GPT, my favorite is Claude, and there's a tool called Gamma, GAMMA.com. Gamma, I think it's gamma.ai. You can load Gamma AI in your Claude. I can take my information that I get from the BFD around, let's say Cargill and telecom expense management. I tell them, hey, if y'all want to meet in 45 minutes, I can show you some slides that will kind of walk you through our value proposition and have them be very specifically defined for Cargill. First, they're going to be looking at you like, what? How are you going to do that? Second, you take the information from the BFD, you drop it into your Claude, you turn on Gamma, and it will make the slides in under 2 minutes. Now you look like a rock star meeting with the folks, talking very specifically about what you can do for them. I think that's some of the things that are going to separate our suppliers when it comes to working with large corporations. They will definitely see that, where did y'all come from? You must be one of them ORV suppliers. They're the only ones that really come like this.
Yes.
Great question.
Yes. Yes, excellent question. And I love that. It's literally like the easy button, right? And so
Yeah.
the conference mode, if nothing else, is going to be a huge value add, whether it's at Catch the Wave or any other conferences that anybody is attending. As I know there are a whole lot coming up this year for this latter part of the year. Any other questions?
I thought somebody would have some really hard ones. Give me some hard.
I know we're taking it easy on you today, Daryl, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to
Or
say two
what's been
things. I'm
terrible?
going to say that again.
What's been terrible? Like people have had some terrible experiences. I'd love to correct some of those too.
Yes. So, two things. If you come up with any questions, I am sharing on my screen Daryl's contact information. You will receive this information along with the deck. So, if you have additional questions that come up to you in the middle of the night or whenever your questions like to come, you can definitely reach out to him. He does have a QR code that as well to his calendar to schedule time, get some time on his calendar to ask any questions that may come up with that may come to you later. I also want to say, as you are getting ready to prep for Catch the Wave, so thinking about our other Catch the Wave prep meeting, that webinar that we had, so you're going to refresh your pitch using the tools from Quinn Conyers. That webinar was last week. If you missed it, you should be able to find it on our YouTube or shoot me an email and I can share the link to you. You're going to research your target corporations based off of what you've learned today. You're going to rewrite your opening and things of that nature. And then you're truly going to decide on what opportunities you need to pursue and what opportunities you need to go ahead and pass on. That is going to maximize not only the time of the corporates, but also, even more importantly, it's going to maximize your time. And that's really what you want to be able to do, is maximize the time that you spend at Catch the Wave this year. Thank you all so very much. Before I let you go, like I said, you'll get the information about using the BFD, but we always like to take a moment to be able to get your feedback. We truly do believe that feedback is a gift. So if you are in the position to do so right now, please pull out your phone and scan this QR code and fill out this brief survey for us, giving us additional information about the session. If you are not in the position to do so right now, that's okay. When you receive the recap email, it will also have a link to this survey there. So I always say it doesn't matter whether you do it now or whether you do it later. I just ask that you go ahead and do that. And then while you are doing that, we have talked all about Catch the Wave, which is one of our upcoming events. But other than that, in the month of August, we do have our coffee break on August 5th. If you know anybody who is not certified, please tell them that they should join us on August 6th or August 19th for our certification webinars. And then if you happen to be a newer WBE, we want you to join us on August 20th for our onboarding webinar. You can always find all of our events that we have on our WBEC ORV website and register for everything there. We've talked at length about Catch the Wave. Everybody is here. That means everybody should already be registered. But if you are not, please definitely register for Catch the Wave August 24th and 25th in Louisville, Kentucky. So we will see you there. And then also you can use this information to prep yourself for our construction summit, which is taking place on October 13th in Cincinnati.
Oh, nice.
That is all that we have. I know that was so much information, but I promise you, it's a big, huge bite, but you'll be able to break it up into smaller pieces. Daryl, thank you so very much for your time, for your commitment to the organization here at WBEC ORV, and for sharing such a wealth of information with our WBEs today. And for the attendees, thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you all next time. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Take care.